So I want to take this a little further, and let's see where we left off. If I go over here, I just have this one column. This is kind of a mess. um, and I'm not really doing any like kind of compound scroll effects. Um, so there are ways to emulate that in Figma, and there's a number of different ways, but I think some are a little easier than others. So let's see here. I think if we're designing this to this 1440, this is not centered. I think this is too close to the edge. If we scroll, this is super boring to have all this dead space. I think our hero point size might be a touch too small for this application. So let's start sprucing this thing up a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just grab this and center it, which helps. I'm going to scale this down a little. Okay, so one of the things that's kind of nice about Figma is that you can create relationships between elements on the page. So as I scale this, the New York Times logo goes for a ride, or I can have one element. So let me grab an example for you. I can have one element, for example, a header. And instead of just placing something on the page, I can have constraints. You can kind of see these little bars over here. And that's not something I really want to get too far into, but when you change the I guess what I'm trying to say is when you change the frame, you can have the elements on the frame behave differently. So what that means over here is when I change this frame, you see the New York Times goes with it. If I don't want that to happen, if I want it to just change the frame and not have these relationships, I just Alt. I click Alt. And then it'll just resize the frame without altering other things. And then instead of scale, maybe we'll just say center. Top. And so what that means is now that it'll always be at the center and it'll always be at the top. All right. So that's a little better. There we go. All right, I'll do the same for this. This I'm just gonna eyeball it. All right, and I'm hitting Alt to make this text box a little smaller. Okay. So now I want to deal with this. And so let's say I wanted to have some columns kind of come down the page here. And I wanted a nice consistent kind of margin and column width and just kind of guide to lay things out. So what I can do is I can come over here and start adding a layout grid to this. So let's just start with a new one. I'm going to make a new grid. And maybe we'll make it a 4-column stretch. Say something like this. And let's say we wanted to make this a little bigger. Zoom in. Say 14 on 14 on 17. Line length kind of a lot. How about something like that? 15 on 18. And so, yeah, I find this helps me make some decisions. And then there's an implied relationship among elements. So let's say here, let's move this down. Another thing I like that my Core Studio students know is I like baseline grids. I think they help establish an interval on the Y. So let's say this thing is what? It is 15 on 18. We can establish a baseline grid here too. And what it let me just do it. So okay, we have 4 columns. Let me just edit this. We're going to say the gutter is 18. And one of the nice things about Figma is we can stack grids on top of each other. So this will be columns. It will be not columns, rows. From auto, so it's just going to go forever. We're going to say from the top, it's going to be 18 on 18. And what that's going to do is just establish a baseline. And so then if we're making blocks, we can be like, okay, it's 3 units of margin on the top and however many we want on the back. It helps us kind of be consistent with our layouts, which I think is only to the good. Yeah, and I think this thing I'm going to put in a new frame. Again, 1940. All right, so what if I wanted to have this same kind of grid everywhere? So I can kind of update it in one spot and have it, use it over here. So it's using the same columns and all that good stuff. So what I would do is save this grid as a style. And to do that, I click over here and I say, we're going to call this scroll grid. And then I can apply that to whatever I like. And then if it's like, oh, let's edit this scroll grid. Maybe I want a little less margin. I can do that. And anywhere it's applied, it will get it, which is quite nice. I think in general, it's nice to have a slightly bigger margin at the bottom than the top. It just kind of shifts everything up, right? And here I was putting the quote. All right, and if I want to put this in the mix, I can Alt drag, put it in our stack, and then anything I do over here will get updated and will automatically populate this thing. All right, so let's just keep going. Alt dragging. Three on the top, four on the bottom. All right, so let's just see how that's cooking. If I go over to here, I can go, okay, so when I get to here, there's like a little dead space. So what if I wanted to have this lock, this scroll, and then this, and then do the same thing in reverse over here, the other side? So how would I do it? that is going to be what we tackle next.